Have you guys ever wondered about what would happen if the Node 304 went through puberty and had growth spurts? Well, me neither, but it looks like Fractal did, and they came up with the Node 804. First off, huge shout out to Josh from Fractal for sending us this case for us to take a look at. You're the best. The Node comes in a standard cardboard box with the regular standard hard styrofoam that we've all seen before. Comes wrapped in a plastic bag, and then we find the usual documentation. This is always the point in the video where I mention the paperwork, and then I usually throw it away because we don't need no stinking instructions. But for once, I actually thumbed through the user's guide, and I must say I'm impressed. This paperwork you will want to keep around. Every illustration in the guide is so detailed. They even tell you what you need on every illustration, from which component to install to which screws you need and how many, and the part that I was really blown away by, the specific screwdriver you would need to use, whether it was a Phillips head number 2 or a Phillips head number 0. And they have each step labeled in 8 different languages on every page and a bunch of different included measurements. For this level of attention to detail, I feel like if I bought this case, I'd definitely be in good hands. Thank you to whoever wrote this guide. Know that someone here does appreciate your work. Josh, you pass that on to whoever it concerns. Let's start with the exterior. We have a gorgeous brushed aluminum front panel that is curved ever so elegantly. There's a small Fractal logo right here with a power LED right beside it. Just around the curve, we find the slot load optical drive, mic and headphone ports, the power button, and 2 USB 3 ports. Now the right hand side panel is not much to see, so let's move on to the top. On the top, I like to call this filter mania. The entire top panel is a dust filter. Awesome. So moving towards the back, we find the first hints of Node's dual chamber design. On the left hand side, we have one of the 3 included Silent Series R2 fans. This is the 120mm size, although this side of the chamber is compatible with the 140mm fans as well. Just below that is the power supply slot. One thing to note that every intake slot on this case has a dust filter. These are some of the most robust filters that I've seen in a while that aren't magnetic, but that's a whole different ball of wax entirely. But anyhow, kudos to Fractal for their nice filters. Moving further along, we find the motherboard I/O cutout, a 3-speed fan controller that can control up to 3 fans, fan number 2 of 3 that's included, and 5 PCI expansion slots. So yes, even in this compact cube, you can still have multiple GPUs. On the left hand side, we have a windowed side panel. Nothing too fancy, it's not tinted or smoked, just a nice crystal clear view of the motherboard chamber. Finally, on the bottom, we find 4 rubber feet, fan filters galore, some over here as well. And what's this? Velcro straps. More on that later. Now, these rubber feet may look a bit shallow for airflow than what we're used to seeing, but they are attached to plastic spacers, giving a total height of about ½ an inch. So let's take off all the panels and dive deeper into the 804. So, starting off on the motherboard chamber, the motherboard tray will take both micro ATX and mini ITX boards. We see a huge CPU cutout for aftermarket heatsinks, although it should be noted that the maximum height you can fit in here is 160mm. To the right of the CPU cutout, we find cutouts for cable management if you plan to stuff this case to the gills with components and cables. Up top, you can fit a 240 or 280mm rad. Keep in mind that if you do go with liquid cooling, you will have to find RAM that's less than 48mm in height, so nothing hits anything else. There are also a couple cable tie notches routed along the bottom of the motherboard tray. These are for the hard drives that you can actually fit on the bottom here. Either 2 3.5 or 2 2.5 drives. Finally, you can fit up to a 320mm graphics card, or if you have a fan installed on the bottom, you can fit a 290mm card. Now, behind the front panel, there's this pretty stealthy double drive cage for your SSDs. Also, this is where the slot load optical drive would go. With the front panel off, you can get a clearer idea of what kind of sort of cooling you might have here. In this case, you can cram a 240mm rad either on the right or the left hand side. We also see some more cable management here. Now this time the cable management openings are a lot smaller, as there's only a maximum of 3 components you can fit behind the front panel. And finally, the 2 dust filters we peeked at earlier from the bottom. Now what was behind on the plain side panel side, we have the hard drive and the power supply chamber. Here we see 2 drive cages hung from the top. These are just secured with thumb screws so that if you ever need to add more hard drives, it's going to be a whole lot easier. Each hard drive cage will fit up to 4 hard drives. Now, to install a radiator on this side, you will need to take off the hard drive mounting system completely by removing these 6 screws. Now I know what some of you are thinking, if you take down the drive cages completely, you won't have anywhere to put the hard drives, right? Wrong. Remember those Velcro straps we mentioned earlier? Well, they're used for cable management obviously, but if you remove them completely, you can attach one of the hard drive cages to the very bottom if we move the screw box out of the way. Just like that. Genius! So, in the end, the Node 804 offers loads of cooling and hard drive configuration options. And if you've been keeping count, it can actually fit up to a dozen drives. You can actually build a NAS with this case or have a sweet little cuboid gaming rig with dual GPUs. It may have a wider footprint because of its dual chamber cooling, but the Node 804 still manages to be shorter than the Air 540 and the Prodigy. You'd be hard pressed to find anything like it. Fractal really took the original idea of the Node 304 and let it grow into this awesome Node 804. Leave a comment down below guys, let us know what you liked or disliked about the Node 804. I'm genuinely curious. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. We'll see you later.